Welcome back, Dolphins. Hit that like and subscribe if you like this video, and comment down below if you have any other people that you want to talk about. We're going to be discussing the three players that kind of destroyed this team, and honestly, you're going to be surprised about the last one, but I think there's certain players that we have to get rid of coming into this offseason, and it's just a mandatory that we get rid of them. Already one of them, I think, has kind of gone, so I'm not going to make too much of a video about it, but there are certain players that I think Chris Greer didn't want to admit that he was wrong and kept giving them chances, and they just did not show up. So the first person that we're going to talk about is Julian Hill. And, you know, Jonnu Smith was a great addition. Julian Hill, the one job that he had the entire season was to block. That was the one job that he had. He really wasn't a pass catcher. He was just there to block. And I don't remember what PFF scored him, but I know he was not even startable when it came to PFF standards on his blocking. And this was the thing. The run game, you know, obviously when Austin Jackson went out, Julian Hill was used on a lot of those run blocks. And when we were looking back at some of the blocking that was happening on some of these runs, a lot of the time it was Julian Hill whiffing on a block or just not even touching the defender that he was supposed to be going after. And that was one of the things that really was key to this, is me personally as a fan getting frustrated when you see a guy that every single play is a detriment. And then on top of that, the penalties were just constant with him. They've been like that for years. And just the refusal to move him out. Like, I know Durham Smythe is not the greatest, but the amount of negative plays that Julian Hill caused throughout his career basically so far just didn't really make any sense. And there were a lot of penalties that would negate drives that Julian Hill would cause by holding or whiffing or just not even blocking the defender at all. And, you know, in this NFL, the game is just about inches, you know, and if you make a block on somebody, you possibly have like a 10, 12-yard run from Achane instead of a 2 or 3 yard loss. So that's why Julian Hill is one of the guys that I just think he just should not be on this team. He should be maybe on the practice squad or something like that. But to be on the active roster was just, it's mind-boggling because he clearly wasn't ready the entire year. The next player, oh boy, I think everybody knows who I'm going to say. But we got to say it. It's Liam Eichenberg. He was a second-round draft pick. Short arms, not tall, not a good base of gravity, and let's be real, like, there's if you go back on my channel to like last year, it's a famous picture of him basically doing a split trying to block a defender. And here's the thing, let's be real about this. You know, Robert Jones, he was not great. He really wasn't good at all, but the majority of the time we're seeing that Liam Eichenberg is consistently, like, upon the start of the snap, getting pushed back into Tua or whatever quarterback was playing. It was huge, you know. And the thing is I don't think people understand how important Austin Jackson was and is to this offensive line. Like, the agility that he is able to move around with. Austin Jackson went out, and Liam Eichenberg got massively exposed. Now, of course, the right tackle was not good. You know, Kendall Lamb was serviceable, but Liam Eichenberg got exposed once Austin Jackson left because Austin Jackson was kind of covering up that side because he was able to do a decent job. And I honestly think this is a twofold, because I think Liam Eichenberg definitely messed with Austin Jackson because he doesn't know who he needs to get, because Liam Eichenberg is always just not playing well. He's always getting blocked back. He's always he always needs help. So with Austin Jackson, you know, when he had Robert Hunt there last year, he played so much better, and I still think he played pretty decent this year, but he played so much better because he had a guy that he could trust to the left of him, whereas this year it's like Liam Eichenberg, he whiffed on everything, you know. And at his best, he was you know, like he was at his best, he was basically a body to put in front of a defender so that at least it took them a second to get to the quarterback. But for the most part, he was literally getting pushed back 2-3 feet every time the ball is snapped. You know, it's just one of those guys that going into this year, I think all of us as fans knew that he was not ready. He did not play decent last year. Like, there's some weirdos that'll say that he plays good or something like that. I don't know where they come from or what games they're watching, but when you watch this dude play, he just doesn't have it. And we knew that the first 2 years of him being in the league. So putting him back out there again after losing Robert Hunt, when he showed you nothing last year, I think he was one of the keys that really took a toll on this team. And I think he really, we talk about the offensive line and we talk about how it's not great. I think he really was the biggest problem of this whole entire, because Robert Jones, shouldn't really have been in there either, but he played a little bit better than Liam Eichenberg. But when Liam Eichenberg got injured, it was like the same old Liam Eichenberg, from the past years, where he was just a turnstile. He could not block anybody in front of him. And the fact that we still had him in there, it made no sense to me. And I understand Isaiah Wynn was out, but once you start seeing that Isaiah Wynn, week 3, it's a tough situation. But it was just a dumb decision by Chris Grier to think that he could start. This is part of the Chris Grier thing, where he just makes these bad decisions that turn up later on in the season, and this was one of them. You thought Isaiah Wynn was coming back earlier, and he didn't. And Liam Eichenberg ended up starting, and he played like the same old Liam Eichenberg as always. There were certain parts against bad teams where he played okay, but then when we played good teams, he got exposed, where he was just getting run rampant all over, and it was killer, man. Like, it really, thankfully, I think they got the hint that they need to shore up the offensive line. Austin Jackson is a pretty good right tackle. Aaron Brewer is a pretty good center. I think Patrick Paul will turn out to be something very good, and depending on what Teron Arms did, but you need to get some guards on this team, because this is affecting not only just the guard position, but the offensive line around them. They can't count on the guards to actually be able to guard anybody. So they are, it confuses your offensive line, because it's all about being in sync when you're, passing off and moving around and catching the hooks and the I'm forgetting the word for it, but when you're doing all that, you have to have trust in the other guy that he's going to get the right dude. And when you don't, it starts confusing you as well. So that's one of the biggest issues when it came to the offensive line. I think Liam Eichenberg, obviously, and Robert Jones. But, Robert Jones shouldn't even have been in that position. I guess we could bunch them both together, that they're backups. That's what they are. They're backup players. But Liam Eichenberg, I don't even consider a backup, really. I just think either he needs more years, or he needs to bag groceries. Like, that's the end of all of it. The last person that I think, and you guys might be surprised at me, but that's all right. Watching him, watching the police thing, watching a lot of the crap, all the way back to when he was in Kansas City, I like the plays that he makes, Tyreek Hill. But when you're trying to play as a team, you have a guy that is continually dropping huge passes, like, just the epitome of it is, I know it didn't amount to anything, thankfully, but the epitome of it was when Tua was playing the 49ers, threw a beautiful ball, and Tyreek Hill had it right in his hands and dropped it. I understand $20 million, maybe $30 million wide receiver, sure, around that range, $20 million, okay, you can have some drops. You got paid, but still. But when you're a $50 million receiver and you have Derek Stingley rip an interception out of your hands to end the game, I understand the ball was underthrown, but this is why you pay these guys this amount of money. And to have that happen, you pay them so that not only, are they great talents, but they help your quarterback out when he's struggling. And, in the big games, Tyreek Hill just doesn't do that. And we've seen it over and over again. People want to say that Tua doesn't perform in the big games. Neither does Tyreek. Usually he's silent. And here's the thing. Got a first-round draft pick, got a second round. There's some receivers coming out in the draft. And what I'm personally saying here, the attitude, the philosophy of this dude, it's just not team-oriented. And I think if you can get someone to take his contract, clear up some cap space, you need a better team around. You need to get someone that is willing to buy into this, not just show up late all the time, complain when things don't happen right, consistently want the ball to get 2,000 yards. And here's the thing. I understand, Waddle's had some drops and all this, but I'm going to tell you right now, I truly do think that obviously we draft a receiver. We need to have another, another number one to go alongside Waddle, but Tyreek Hill gets traded and Waddle gets to take on more of a role. I think the connection with him and Tua is going to flourish, and I think it'll kind of revert back to the rookie year. When we first saw Jalen Waddle, we thought he could pretty much be a 1A and a 1B with Tyreek Hill, and since Tyreek Hill has got here, he's been like a B, maybe even a C, And I think it has to do with the mentality and the psychology of having to deal with a person like that. Yes, he's a great player, but selfish, just wants the ball all the time, doesn't want to, and he said everything that he said throughout the year, but of course, right when it doesn't work, completely said what he was feeling the entire time, that he just doesn't really care about anybody here. He cares about himself. And you can't have a player like that on your team. Personally, what I'm saying, Luther Burden, Igbuka from Ohio State, these players are going to be in the draft. If you can get someone to take Tyreek Hill's cap, and you can get them off the team, clear up some cap space, start working in free agency with offensive linemen, because if Tua gets time, I think we have speed because Tua doesn't have time. If you give Tua time, then you still have speed, and you get a different style of receiver, a bigger one that can, go up for the ball, help Tua out. And you get someone that's going to buy in much more to this team, because I think Tyreek Hill at this point is just becoming a detriment. But let me know what you think in the comments. As always, guys, love you all. Fins up, baby. Peace.